Good morning everyone. Welcome to the class once again. Today we are going to discuss chapter number 9, and that is related to nature and scope of foreign trade. It is also called as international trade. So please mark the topics that we have to do under this foreign trade. Under this chapter number 19, the first part, that is meaning of international trade or foreign trade, that we will do. Then foreign trade can be of three kinds, that also it comes under the meaning only. Then characteristics of international trade, that also we will do. Distinction between internal trade and external trade, that also we will do. Then basis of foreign trade, we won't do it. Then problems or difficulties in international trade, that is there in the syllabus, that we will do. And importance or disadvantages of international trade, that also we will do. Okay, it means advantages and disadvantages, that we will do. Then disadvantages of international trade, it is given. If once we are doing advantages, disadvantages, importance, if we are doing difficulties, that also will come under disadvantages, or we can do the points which are given as disadvantages of international trade. Then middlemen in foreign trade. Middlemen in foreign trade, that we won't do it. Please put a cross, that we will not do it. Then we will documents involved in international trade, though these documents are important, but here it is not there in the syllabus, because when we will do the import and export procedure, there we will do related to these documents in a detail. Okay. Then balance of payments, it is not there in the syllabus. Distinction between balance of payments and balance of trade, we will not do it. Types of price quotations used in foreign exchange, already we have discussed, that was related to home trade. Here it is related to international trade. So all that we will discuss in the import and export procedure. So over here, all these things are not there in the syllabus. Modes of payment in foreign trade, we don't have to do. Please put a cross. Specimen and all of a documentary bill of exchange, we won't do it. All these documentary letter of credit and all, that we will not do it. All these we will do in the chapter import and export procedure. So I hope it is clear to everyone. From this chapter, we are going to discuss the meaning of foreign trade, the types of foreign trades, then we will do the characteristics of foreign trade, then difference between internal trade and external trade, and then we will discuss related to the advantages and disadvantages of foreign trade. I have already told you, if once we are discussing the problems, we don't have to discuss exclusively related to disadvantages. Already it is the points are being discussed over here related to the problems or difficulties in international trade. That will become the disadvantage of international trade. Okay, so we will do the advantages and disadvantages. You can see all these problems or difficulties of international trade, and if disadvantages will be asked, you can write even these points also, it will be correct. So I hope it is clear what are the points that we have to discuss under this chapter. Now let us begin with the meaning of international trade. As the name indicates, trade. Now what is the meaning of trade? Already you have done so many chapters related to trade. Right from the beginning, first chapter, classification of business activities and all that we have already discussed about what is trade. Now trade, again I am revising it, trade is the process of buying and selling. The business of buying and selling, that is called as trade. Now we can say it is written as, it is as old, this trade is as old as human civilization. Even in ancient times, people used to trade, means transport goods from one place to another. But due to the limited means, it was done on a very, very small scale. But after this industrial revolution, there was advancement in all these facilities, and we started doing trade on a large scale. You see, earlier we were dependent totally on, you can say, we were following the system of closed economy. Whatever we had, we were transferring all those within our own boundaries. There were lots and lots of restrictions. But after the new industrial policy, after the industrial revolution, we found that all these strict rules and regulations, that all that was removed, it was lifted up, and lot of relaxations and facilities that was provided. So that gave encouragement for international trade. So here we are going to focus on the international trade, or it is also called as foreign trade. Now already you have seen that trade means buying and selling business. Now why it is necessary to buy from the other nations? Why it is necessary? Because it is not possible for any country to be self-sufficient, and it is not possible for any country to produce all types of commodities which they are using, which the citizen of that country they are using. It is not possible for them to produce everything in the same country. They may have lot of financial resources, but they may not have those climatic conditions, those natural resources. That is why it becomes necessary for almost all the countries of the world to import and to export. To import certain commodities which they cannot produce, okay, which that is not suitable to produce in their particular country, and even they are exporting those commodities which they can produce at a lower cost. You know, suppose the climatic conditions or the things are adverse. Though in today's environment we have a lot of technologies, we can produce those commodities also. But you know, if we will try to produce those commodities, importing all those technologies and resources from other nations, it will be more and more costly. So we see that if the cost of production is coming more and more than the cost of importing it, so it is better to import it than to produce it. That is why these concepts gave rise for this trade. So I hope it is clear to everyone. So here we are talking about foreign trade. Foreign trade means buying and selling of the commodities across the boundaries. It is done by different countries of the world. When buying and selling, or you can say the import and export, if it is done between two or more than two countries, that is called as international trade or foreign trade. It is not within the boundaries of the country, but it is across the boundaries of the country. So I hope it is clear. Here, like India, if India is importing from USA, UK, Japan, Iran, Iraq, we are importing many commodities, or we are exporting also to these nations. You know, at the time of independence in the year 1947, you know, just because of partition, India faced a lot of problem. And you know, before that, India was called as a golden bird, rich in wealth, heritage, prosperity. But you see, such a critical situation the country had to face at that time of independence, and even the country faced the problem of food crisis, and it was compulsory for our country to import. We were bound to import the commodities from other nations. So even you know, the country imported food grains. Food grains. Here today we are importing all those technologies, advanced technologies, but at that time India was rich in agriculture. Agriculture was the main occupation, and we were not having any problem related to food grain. But at that time we had to even import food grains to feed a large population of our country. So you can see the situation. Sometimes the situations are adverse, and we have to depend on all these types of business transactions. Okay, so here I think it is clear to everyone that international trade is a trade when it is done between two different other nations. It can be two or more than two nations, two countries, buying and selling. And why it is done, you know, I have already explained all these things. Then now let us move towards the kinds of international trade. There are three kinds of international trade. That is import trade, export trade and entry-port trade. Now let us move towards this import trade. What is import trade? You know, import trade is a trade where the country is importing, means buying from other nations. That is called as import trade. Import trade is a trade where the country buys from other nations. The commodities which the country cannot produce, the country is not self-sufficient in producing those commodities, the climatic conditions, the natural resources are not available, and if they try to produce also, the cost of production will be more and more. So in that situation, a country find it more easy to import those commodities. So here that will be called as import trade, when a country is buying from other nations to satisfy their needs, to satisfy the needs of their citizens. So that is called as import trade. Like if India is buying certain commodities from like America, that is UK, then France, that is Germany, Japan. If we are buying all these commodities, that will be called as import trade. Now export trade. Just the opposite of that is export trade. Export trade means when we are selling, like if a country, India, is selling the commodities to the other nations, that is called as export trade. We are exporting, so when we are exporting, we will earn foreign exchange. But when we are importing, we will have to make the payment in the foreign exchange. Okay? So here export trade helps in earning more and more foreign exchange, and export trade means when a country is selling the commodities to the other nations, that is called as export trade. Okay? The country which is self-sufficient, the country which has abundance of natural resources, financial resources, and they can produce the commodity at lower cost of production, at minimum cost of production than other nations. They are producing it and they are selling it to the other nations. That is called as export trade. I hope it is clear. And a country can also earn more and more export trade, more and more foreign exchange. Now the third is entry-port trade. Now entry-port trade means importing from one nation and then exporting it to the other nations. There are countries, those who are dependent on this type of business, they import from other nations and then they export it to the other nations. So that is called as entry-port trade. Okay, this is also a part of international trade. It is taken from one country and it is sold to the other country. Okay, so this is about the entry-port trade. I hope it is clear to everyone. Import trade, export trade and entry-port trade. In import trade, you know, the foreign exchange, it is not earned, but the amount is paid in the foreign exchange. So we have to keep a reserve of foreign exchange. Normally, a common medium of exchange is adopted, like dollar, okay, or pound or sterling and all. That is common medium of exchange. Normally dollar is taken as a common medium of exchange, foreign exchange. So normally we make the payment in dollars, and whenever we export, we receive the payment in foreign exchange so that we can earn more and more foreign exchange. Okay, so these are the types of international trade. That is import trade, export trade and entry-port trade. Now let us move towards the characteristics of foreign trade. Now there are several characteristics. Already we have discussed so many points related to the characteristics in the meaning itself. Now let us go through the points. You can see 8 points are given as the characteristics. The very first point is related to territorial specialization. Territorial specialization means that is, there is a geographical specialization. Geographical specialization. I have already told you that it is not that every country is self-sufficient. Every country is not self-sufficient. And it is not that every country specializes in the production of goods and services, all types of goods and services. So we know that if all these resources are not available in abundance in all the nations, that is why the climatic conditions also, it is not good for producing all types of commodities in almost all the countries. That is why this concept of import and export that got originated. So we can see over here it has territorial specialization. It means it has geographical specialization, means the country, those who can produce the commodities at lower cost, they are producing it and they are selling it to the other nations where the cost of production is more and more. So here you can see, like India exports the commodities. There are certain commodities which India exports, like jute, tea and all. India has a specific advantage in the production of jute and tea. So India is exporting these commodity, jute and tea, to UK. Okay, to UK. So here we can say that India is self-sufficient in producing jute and tea, and they are exporting this jute and tea to the country like UK. And India is also importing the commodity like steel and all, which UK is very much self-sufficient in producing those commodities, okay, and with the lower cost of production. So here if we produce those commodities, we will have to spend a lot of money in that, and the cost of production will be more and more. So it is better to import. So we are importing steel products and we are exporting jute and tea products to the other nations. So that is called as geographical specialization or territorial specialization. The products in which we are specialized, we are producing and we are exporting, and the products in which the other nations are specialized, they are producing and they are exporting it to the other nations. So a country like India, there are certain products which we are self-sufficient, so we are producing and we are selling it, okay, that will be called as export. And the products in which we are not self-sufficient, we are not producing it but we are importing it, so that will be called as import. Okay, so that is related to geographical specialization. Now the next point is related to international competition. As you know, it is done between 2 or more than 2 countries of the world. So we have producers from different countries of the world, and it is not only done between 2 countries, but there are many countries which are involved, and it is not that we are importing it from only one country of the world, but we are importing from several countries of the world, and we are exporting to several other countries of the world. So we may find lot of competition between the different producers. Just because of this competition, different countries, we are gaining. As you have seen, if more and more sellers will be there, so the customers will gain. Because due to competition, the prices of the commodity will be, that is, it can come down. So here, this is called as international competition, due to which the importer and exporter at times they gain due to this international competition. Then separation of seller from the buyer. There is no chance of meeting the seller and buyer, because seller is situated in different other countries of the world, as well as the buyer is situated in different other countries of the world. Okay, so there is very less chance of meeting these sellers and buyers, because they are from different countries of the world, and they are importing and exporting. Then long chain of middlemen. As you have seen that the buyers and sellers, they cannot meet each other. Like that is when buying and selling is done within the boundaries of the nation, easily the buyers and sellers can meet each other. Whereas when buying and selling is done across the nation, it is very difficult for the buyers and sellers to meet each other. So in that situation, there will be a long distance, no? So long distance required long chain of middlemen. Okay, so middlemen are there, those who provide their specialized help. They are the expert people and they play a major role in export and import business. We will study about clearing agent, forwarding agent, those who play a major role in the process of import and export procedure. Forwarding agent plays a major role in the export procedure, whereas clearing agent plays a major role in the import procedure. Okay, so these are called as the middlemen and they play a major role because they are the expert people, specialized people. They have full knowledge about performing all those formalities. So all that is done by these forwarding agents and the clearing agents. So that is called as presence of middlemen. Then mutually acceptable currency. As I told you that different countries have got different currencies. But we have to import from different other countries. It's not that we are importing only from one country of the world or we are exporting to only one country. Here we are importing and exporting to different other countries. Okay. So in this situation, we take as a common medium of exchange. So here dollar or you can say pound sterling is selected as a common medium of exchange. And it is very convenient for the countries to make the payment in this currency. It is all over world acceptable. Then international rules and regulations. It is very necessary to have the to have the proper study of the international rules and regulations. Like if suppose we are going to import from UK or we are going to export to the country UK. So we should know about what are the political conditions, what are the rules and regulations of that particular country, because we have to follow all those rules and regulations while importing and exporting. So we should have a proper study of those international rules and regulations. And also what are the changes which are taking place in those rules and regulations. Then government control. Here the government of every country exercises control over the imports and exports for their national interest. It is not that we can do this import and export without the permission of the government. Government is providing all the facilities and everything must be done under the government instructions and restrictions. You know, it is said that every country has got their own rules and regulations framed by the government. So the government exercises control over all these imports and exports for their national interest. Then several documents. There are large number of documents which are required in the export and import procedure. That we will do with different documents are there, like letter of credit, indent, all these acknowledgement. So all these are there that we will study, circular invoice and all these are there. So that we will study in detail when we will do the import and export procedure. So I hope these points are absolutely clear to you. We have focused today about the foreign trade, the meaning of foreign trade, the types of foreign trade and the characteristics of foreign trade. Thank you very much.